Hello, I am Centimus Prime, and here I will be showing you an alternative build I've made using the parts from the LEGO Creator set number 31128 Dolphin and Turtle set. Now, first and foremost, we will be taking a closer look at Bubbly. Yes, that's right. After three alternative builds, I finally decided to start naming my builds. So take a look at Bubbly. Here we get an overall smooth and round build to him. And you can see the I put the crab on his chest. Now, I do personally like these smooth round shoulder pauldrons. Does give it a nice bubbly rounded look. The head, while simple, is also kind of effective. I do like how the head looks in contrast to the body. Very nice. Now moving down to his legs, again we do carry over the smooth roundness of some of the top half of his body, getting this nice roundness to him. Very nice. Here we get to see a look at him from the back. Kind of stud heavy, but I didn't have enough tiles or stuff to cover up everything, so I cover up what I could. Very interesting. Now I did add these these pink elephant trunk looking pieces to add a little bit more of that to add a little more of that pink color to the color scheme, which is the next thing I will be talking about, is the color scheme. I do really enjoy this bright and cheerful color scheme that Bubbly is sporting. It's very, very nice. I do like it. It does put a smile on my face. Now take a look at his arms. You do see that he has a classic clip. He has the clip for hand right there. But on his other arm, he has what I'm gonna call his I'll talk about that in a second. So on his other hand, he has this weapon build, I like to call it I'm going to call it his bubble blaster. Because the idea of this weapon is that he shoots bubbles at his enemies. Yes, he shoots bubbles. I do kind of like that little characteristic about him. Very nice. Originally, I did wanted to use these dark azure clip pieces But when I like was building this down to the knees, I like needed some sort of solid connection to give him a decent knee articulation. Hence why I moved the hand pieces down there, but I only had like one of these tan clips, so I ended up making this little build for him. And now I talk about this. The shoulder build, well, I will say that how the shoulder is connected is honestly the weakest part about this build, because it's like connected only by like the two studs. It's not connected all that great, but if you're like careful with it, it shouldn't be an issue. Speaking of, I do want to talk about the articulation next. Plugging that back in, it's Lego, of course it's going to do that. So the head is on a swivel, can go 360, and something very interesting is due to the way I've connected the head onto the neck, it actually gives me a little bit of wiggle room, so he actually has up and down motion on his head, has a little bit of up and down on his head as well, so he can look up a little bit and he can look down a little bit. Very, very neat. No tilt side to side because it doesn't really work like that, but it's very nice. The shoulders on the ball joints, they can pop off pretty easily, but it's not too big of a deal. He does have a good range. These ball joints even allow him to have a little bit of butterfly joint movement. And the interesting thing about the arms is that this is how his like shoulder assembly sort of works. His bicep sort of works. And I do need to find a way to connect that a little bit better. Oh yeah, and these pink parts back here can like swing back and forth. So his arms, they're on this ball joint, but they're also on this ball joint to give him a bit of extra movement in the arm, making it so he's able to bend his arms out pretty far. Very nice. And is able to move his arms in and even able to have like a sort of bicep rotation. Very nice. The elbows are built in a way that it's on like this sort of like hinge sort of thing, so his elbow can bend really far, can bend pretty nice, and then he can also bend his knee back a little bit. Just watch out for the shoulder joints. Honestly, can be a little annoying. It can be tricky to move his to use the arm articulation. But as long as you're super careful again, as long as you're careful with the joints, it shouldn't be that big of a deal. And here's something that's kind of cool. I also gave him a bit of an ab crunch. So his ab, so he can crunch that far. Of course, he's falling apart on camera. I had nowhere near this much trouble off camera. Man. He's camera shy. He is most definitely camera shy. Oh yeah, and his back can arch about that far. Honestly, really, really neat. And of course, this crab chest thing can like spin around, like so. His shoulder, his hips are on your simple ball joints. You can kick up pretty far. He can kick back really good, really nice and far. And of course, he can do some split. He can split. Again, I did not have this issue off camera. His knees are on a hinge, and his knees can bend back a little past 90. Very nice. And finally, he has ankle tilts. He has a bit of ankle tilts. So I did design him with a decent range, with a good range of articulation for his size. And you can get him into some really nice poses if his shoulders can just cooperate long enough for me to put him into a pose. How about that? Very, very nice. There is, however, one part of this build I'm not particularly happy with, and that's regarding the lower legs. For you see, his lower legs do feel a bit incomplete, especially back here with these gaps and untiled studs, and even these brown slope pieces. I ended up using those because I ran out of other pieces to use. Well, not ran out. I ran out of pieces that I could logically use down here for his feet. He does have a fair bit of spare parts, which is actually going to be the next thing I'm going to talk about, because I always like to bring in the spare parts that are the parts that are left over from building this little from building these builds. So dumping them out, here are all the parts that are left over from this build. And again, they're mostly the larger pieces. They're mostly like larger pieces. So I ended up not using a lot of the larger pieces. And I didn't use the eyes. I didn't use these, surprisingly. had some interesting ideas with those, and of course I left some darker things out, such as the browns, the purple, and this like dark hot pink color, or magenta. Okay, this one's magenta. This color is the hot pink, I believe. I don't know. Anyway, those are the parts that I ended up not using, left over. Boom, boom. Now, next up is size comparisons. Next up is size comparison. So, moving over here, starting off, here he is compared to a minifigure. So you can see that the top of the minifigure's head goes up to about his knee. He's about as tall as his shin. Very neat. And here's the parade of alternative builds I've previously made, and now giving names to. So starting off, here is Bubbly compared to Danya. So that's how she compares to him. That's how he compares to her. He is next to Danya's hover vehicle, the Dune Speeder. That's how he compares to that. Here he is next to the super space shuttle. The super space shuttle, or the SSS as I call it. But it is called, that's how it compares to the super space shuttle. And lastly, here he is next to hold on, I'm trying to remember this. Hold on, what did I call you? Hold on, his name is blanking out on me. Oh well, I forget what name I called him, but it was a somewhat cool name. I mean, it was Krog. Oh yeah, Krogger. It was Krogger. It was Kroggeraya. Kroggeraya. Yes, that's what it was. Here is Bubbly compared next to Kroggeraya. Boom. And next, again, he's sort of a short, dumpy boy. He's sort of a short, dumpy dude. And that's kind of the vibe I kind of like that vibe coming from this guy. Very, very nice, very cute. sort of like a mini bot in some ways. So like a Transformer mini bot in some ways. And even with his bubble blaster, and I'm thinking like the idea for his bubble blaster is that yes, obviously he shoots bubbles, but the bubble I like to think that like the bubbles sort of does a similar thing. So like it grabs like can sort of like trap small enemies in the bubbles, and then he can like toss those small items at his enemies, like throw those. It was. I'm thinking like I don't know. It was just some weird idea for his weapon when I was making it, which sort of led me. What's that combined with the bright small with the bright rounded styling of this build kind of led me to call him Bubbly. Very, very nice. And I did add very, very bright, very cheerful. I do really like him. And yes, I will eventually, and like all of my previous alternative builds, I will sooner or later, I will eventually post a video on how to build this little guy, so you can enjoy him for yourself. And I guess that'll be it for this video. If you enjoyed this alternative build, if you enjoyed this video, consider to like and subscribe, and maybe even comment if you want. And of course, I will be posting again sooner or later.